Have you noticed that people don't seem to be taking responsibility for anything anymore? I've especially noticed this when it comes to our beautiful country's politics. Every Wednesday in the UK we have a thing called PMQ, so Prime Minister's Questions, and it's a series of questions asked usually cross-party by sitting MPs of the Prime Minister, and our current Prime Minister is Keir Starmer. And what usually happens is that an MP will stand up and they'll ask a question. Often it will be a pointed, difficult question if it's an opposition MP, but most of the time half the questions are actually from his own party MPs, and they run along the lines of something like, last year you donated £10,000 to our local children's hospital. Do you think that was a good idea? And the PM stands up and goes, why, yes, I did do that, and I still think it was a good idea. Stuff like that. Occasionally you'll have the leader of the opposition, will have usually about 5, 6, 7 or 8 questions, I can't remember. They'll stand up, and currently that's Kemi Badenoch, even though I'm not sure she's going to be the leader of the opposition much longer, especially with the rise of reform. And she will ask more pointed, difficult questions, even though so far her approach at PMQs has been a bit scattergun. She doesn't really kind of push forward and push through the argument on one particular line of things. And it's not like she hasn't had a whole plethora of things that she could really have tied Keir Starmer up about. Not to mention the R gangs in the north. Also the fact that for some reason he had his vocal coach, who was actually really quite pretty, come round and give him some oral exercises, perhaps. Funnily enough, on Christmas Eve, during the time when he was actually in Tier 4 lockdown. Something that Boris Johnson was hounded out for. And I seem to remember Keir Starmer saying at the time, when he was leader of the opposition in Parliament, that if he'd have done the same thing, and this is the solemn, po-faced Keir Starmer that we're all used to now, I would have stepped down instantly myself. But obviously he hasn't done that this time round, has he? I mean, you can go and get a hell of a lot of head help by your oral coach when you should really be sat at home with your family, I would have thought, trying to survive the worst cold in 20 years. But anyway, I digress. What I noticed at PMQs is the fact that every question that he's asked by anyone, he doesn't answer, unless it's one that's from his own particular MPs. He just doesn't answer the question, which is something that Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, and for those of you who don't know, the Speaker is someone who is supposed to be pretty much neutral. They very rarely are, though, just looking at John Bercow of past times and his attempts to scupper Brexit. But also the fact that Lindsay Hoyle does not ask Keir Starmer to answer the question. He just lets him sort of put some platitudes out there or come back with sometimes ad hominem attacks, which is something that you should just never do in Parliament. It's ridiculous. The other thing that Keir Starmer does that's actually against the rules as well is he answers his questions from reading his papers. You're not really supposed to do that. You're actually supposed to answer the questions on the hoof. You should be fully briefed up with whatever's going on in the country, and the fact that you're reading your answers off a piece of paper means that, number one, you were briefed already about what the questions would be, and number two, you can't think on your feet, and that's something that sometimes you don't really want in the leader of a country. So I've noticed that Keir Starmer is not standing up to his responsibilities. He's not taking responsibility for anything that has happened. And really, you could say the same thing for the Conservative Party because of what they've done with open border immigration, especially during the Boris wave, and also the fact that they spunked billions of pounds on PCR tests, the fact that they haven't reformed our saintly NHS, who we must praise to the high heavens forever. But this is also indicative as well of a wider problem in society. Now, my day job is as a plumber. I go to people's houses, I work on their central heating systems, I do plumbing work, just general plumbing work, okay? And if there is a problem, if there's a leak, if I bring a ceiling down, and I'll tell you a little anecdote actually. I had a lovely apprentice once, which is a very philanthropic and difficult thing to do sometimes, because having an apprentice, especially when you're self-employed, can be really, really quite difficult. And yeah, you've really got to sort of think about what you're doing. It just makes every day really, really hard. And we were finishing off 7 houses in a local town near to us. We'd done everything, all the work there, from first fix, which is when you put all the little pipes in at the start behind the walls, to the glorious second fix, which is all the way down to siliconing that lovely shower tray in and putting on the kitchen taps and making sure they're all shiny and work really, really well. So we ended 1 week, we'd fitted all the shower tray stuff, and I'd shown him how to do it. And I thought, you know what, this boy's ready, he's doing really well. It was just, he was about 6 to 7 months into his apprenticeship, and it was just really catching on, you know, and I was like, well, I'm really pleased with him. So I said, right, you can do this shower tray on your own. I've shown you how to do it. I've shown you exactly how to do it. And when I say the shower tray, I mean like the plumbing for it, not the shower tray bit. That's quite difficult to do. So anyway, put all the plumbing stuff in. I'd shown him how to test for leaks with a bucket of water, to pour down the waste pipe to make sure it was going to be okay, and all that. And he came through and he said, I've poured water down it. There's no leaks at all, and it's flowing away perfectly fine. Unbeknownst to us, what he'd done was he hadn't actually collected in the pipe into the main stack, and that pipe was just hanging loose in the ceiling space directly above the brand new flat that we just finished that had been sold for about £400,000. And it was all completely done. Oh man, it was so bad. But we got back with that, and that was on Friday. Went off for a lovely weekend. I can't remember what I did, but I came back on Monday morning back to site and was perplexed as to why the windows on the ground floor had all steamed up. And what had happened is obviously the shower above had been signed off. The tenant had moved in over the weekend because we were really, really good at getting them sort of spun around then. And they've been using their shower, and of course all the shower water had been going down into the brand new beautiful flat below. Now I had to take 100% full responsibility for that. It was my fault that I'd let my apprentice do that work when he wasn't ready to do it, and it was just something that we had to get on with and sort out, we did. We brought the ceiling down. We came in with new guys to put the ceiling up, and it was double beam ceiling, double plasterboarded ceiling, for the reasons of noise abatement and sound and stuff like that. But we got it done. We got it skimmed, and literally within about a week, it was all fixed, back to normal, and done by me, responsibility, and at my expense. But that's something that, on an individual level, to be fair, I'm actually prouder of that than I am of some of the jobs that go really, really well and that, you know, you just do and move on to the next one. When you have problems like that, you really have to dig deep sometimes. I mean, God, I've been in some situations before with my job where I've really almost thought, oh my God, how am I going to sort this out? This is a real problem. These people are expecting me to try and fix this problem. Sometimes you go to places where they've got young children, it's in the middle of winter, they're ill, they've got no heating, and you're almost like the fourth emergency service. It's really weird. But anyway, I digress. What I'm trying to say is that on an individual level, I don't think people take responsibility for anything that they do anymore. I feel like people take less responsibility, or they're quite happy to palm it off. And of course, who can really blame them? Because the people that we should be looking up to, and I really, really sort of say this tongue in cheek, you know, we really should look up to politicians. They should be the best people that this country can produce to run it in the best way possible. And, you know, I'd love Labour to be able to do that, and I'd love them to make this country as good as they can. I don't care which party does it, as long as they do what they think is 100% right, and they do it to the best of their ability. But at the moment, what the population of this country do, they look at our TV, they look at what happens at PMQs, they look at what happens when any time a politician is asked a question that they don't answer, and you know, we've got to see what's been going on up north at the moment with this particular gang issue, right? No one's taking responsibility for that. The people who were palming off the poor girls who were being systematically abused, I can't say the actual word because YouTube demonetises channels that do that, that these poor girls were shunted from pillar to post by police officers who then turn into commissioners, by people who are running certain services in council who are now sitting Labour MPs, some of them are so complicit in this, I think down to perhaps a point of real criminality. You know, these people have not been brought to account. So why should the population? Why should individual people in this country who watch the news every day or who take all that sort of thing in, why should they take responsibility for their own lives and for the things that are happening? And therefore, what do they expect more of? They expect greater state, a larger public sector, and they don't seem to understand that everything the public sector does is paid for by the wealth created in the private sector. There's no way around it. You can argue it in the comments if you like. There's no way around it, okay? So, yeah, what do you think? Do you see people taking less responsibility for their lives? Do you see young people, when things go wrong for them, they just rely on their parents to try and fix it? And you watch parents actually fix it for them, which is like the worst thing you could do. You've sometimes just got to guide them in the right way to fix things like that. I've got my little boy with me right now, and there's going to come a time where he breaks one of his toys or something like that, and he's going to say to me, Dad, can you buy me another toy, please? Can you take responsibility for that? I don't want to take responsibility for it. And I'm going to show him how to fix that toy. And when he goes away and fixes it and brings it back to me, I will show him so much, like, oh my God, mate, that's absolutely brilliant. And from that, he'll learn a couple of things. That obviously I love him unconditionally, but also that he learnt that sometimes working at something yourself, whatever it is, whether you're fixing something or creating something, there's so much more happiness that you can get from doing something like that. Take responsibility for yourselves. Build something. Do good. See you in the next video.